Hi, everybody. Welcome to a Mighty Blaze Friday Frontliner. I'm Jenna Blum, co-founder of The Blaze with my menschie, novelist, best-selling sister, Caroline Leavitt. I'm here today with a very, very special and beloved guest, Brenda Janowitz. We're so excited to have you. Hello.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad we managed to ensnare you and drag you into the Blaze. Welcome. So before I give Brenda her proper introduction, a little introduction about the Blaze. Those of you who are Blaze return offenders, welcome back. We're so glad you're here. It's not a party without you. Those of you who are new to the Blaze, thank you for joining us. We are a team of 35 creative professional volunteers who are dedicated to connecting writers in the age of COVID with their readers in the age of Delta, in the age of Omicron, in the age of Zelda, or whatever the next thing is going to be. We will be here and we will outlast the pandemic, endemic. We will still be here connecting writers and readers forever. If you like what you see here, please give us a like or a follow on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on Goodreads. We are ubiquitous. Please consider signing up for our newsletter, which is www.amightyblaze.com. So you'll be kept abreast of all of the latest industry news and who we have coming up on our fabulous author interviews that week. You will never have literary FOMO ever again. No more FOMO. Nobody likes that. And today, as I said, I am so happy to welcome Brenda Janowitz. Many of you know and love her already, but in case you have been living under a literary rock, I will read Brenda's bio. So ready, Brenda? Buckle up. It's you. Brenda Janowitz is the author of 7 novels, including most recently, before the Liz Taylor Ring, The Grace Kelly Dress, The Dinner Party, which everybody thought was so luscious, and they were right. Recipe for a Happy Life, The Lonely Hearts Club, Jack with a Twist, and Scott on the Rocks. So obviously we are in for a really fun time today. Her latest novel, which we are here to discuss today, is The Liz Taylor Ring. Get your product placement in there, as my agent says. And Brenda, you have a ring on today that is like dressed like your book, yes? Boom.
Yes. So
Is that a real diamond, 11 carats?
I mean, if this were a real diamond, 11 carats, I'd be living on a yacht like Liz Taylor. But alas, no. When I started writing the book, my mom wanted to get me a replica of the Krupp diamond. But then I told her that the characters in the book didn't have a 33.19 carat Asher cut diamond. They actually had an 11 carat because, like I was trying to think of like what normal people would consider a humongous ring.
I mean, I would consider anything 25 and above maybe enormous. Ways down.
Yeah, I hear that. Well, so my mom then you're in Florida. She went to like every store in Florida and asked for a replica of the Krupp diamond, but 11 carats, but it still had to be Asher cut. And she got me this.
That is beautiful. That's a real 11 carat Asher cut ring, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but cubic zirconia, not La Liz diamond. But the funny is, she was like, oh, when you're writing, as you type, you should wear it for inspiration. And I tried doing that, but it's so big that it flops over.
This is Liz Taylor problems, Brenda. Liz Taylor problems.
They really are. The other night I was joking to some readers that, what am I going to wear, an 11 carat ring to the supermarket? But Elizabeth Taylor did not. She did wear the Krupp every day, but she never went to the supermarket, I would imagine. Her life and my life are a little different.
And probably she wasn't typing. I remember like at one point I had an engagement ring that was like bigger than a speck of dust. And I felt like I was crushing the S key whenever I was typing. I was like, oh, my finger is so heavy because of this big ring. So I imagine this is like a Liz Taylor writer problem. And now when you go out, you're kind of like weighed down to one side, like Paris Hilton, where you have to walk like this because your ring is so heavy.
You have to like hold your hand.
Yeah, on a like a little like a a cane or something to like prop it up. It's hard to be you, but we're really glad you're here. I should probably finish reading your bio. So Brenda was a former books correspondent for Pop Sugar, which I loved, and I was always like, "Hi, Brenda, you're my best friend. Can you put me in Pop Sugar?" And you're like, "Jenna, everybody wants to be in Pop Sugar, so stop." And her work has also been in the New York Times, Real Simple, Washington Post, and the New York Post. And she used to be an attorney before she became Elizabeth Taylor, the Elizabeth Taylor of writers. Welcome.
I am so excited to be here, especially because the last time I was here was for the Grace Kelly dress, and that was like at the dawn of the pandemic. And you guys, you and Caroline just sort of like swept to everyone's rescue. And that was when A Mighty Blaze was like a baby blaze. But you guys just like came in and you took care of business and you took care of all of us March 2020 authors and really helped us out because it was like a rapidly changing landscape and sort of something we had no idea. And it was you guys who really helped us. That's why you're in my acknowledgements.
Oh my God.
I don't know if you got the acknowledgements, but you're in
gonna
them.
cry. I will cry and mess up my makeup, but you can read it anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Here.
Oh my God, I see myself. Well, I would go and look right now, but that would leave us dead air. We don't want dead air. I'll go look afterwards and then my makeup afterwards. But thank you for that. And honestly, we have so many excellent colleagues now working in the industry, like the Friends and Fiction people and Zibby. Yeah. And so there are a lot of opportunities to loft writers. And as a writer myself, I'm grateful. And as a reader myself, I'm grateful to have the opportunity. So thank you. And geez, 2 books during one pandemic, that is a lot. Like 2, like beautifully glam, like I don't dress like this for all the interviews. I'm like, I got to level up for Brenda, like put some sunglasses on and, you know, some makeup. But tell us about the Liz Taylor ring. Every time I say this, the book manifests in my hands. If you guys don't have this book yet, you should have it because it is the ultimate escape from February. It is the ultimate beach read, as I can testify, because I'm sorry, not sorry. I'm somewhere with a beach right now. Like I'm in West Palm Beach. Don't hate me. I don't care. Like I'm here. But anyway, I had this great book that was keeping me company that I'm like on the beach being like, oh, I'm sorry. Do you guys see this book? It's amazing. Tell us what this book is about.
Yeah, I would love to. So the Liz Taylor ring is the story of 3 siblings, their parents' epic love story, and the one diamond ring that is thought to be long lost, but it sort of resurfaces and mixes everything up. It sort of threatens to tear the family apart and sort of disrupt the gentle balance that's going on with the sibling relationships. So, you know, it's a story about sibling relationships. It's a story about love. There's a love story happening in the background that's really at the core of it. But it's also, you know, about these items that sort of have been passed down and what heirlooms mean to us and why they're important. And to a larger extent, it's about family story and family lore and how we sort of tell stories throughout the generations and how those stories morph and change when different people are telling them. And just as they get told over and over again, sort of how they change. So it's something I've been really obsessed with for a long period of time, but it felt like the perfect thing to be talking about with the Liz Taylor ring. It's funny because I'm now working on an essay for Real Simple about an heirloom in my husband's family. And I first learned about this heirloom stone back 14 years ago when I first met Doug. And so I remember hearing the story from his mom, from him, from his 2 sisters, and, you know, all about this ruby that belonged to their grandpa Ruby.
Oh, Ruby.
Yeah. So when it came time to write about it, I basically wrote it from my memory, what I'd remembered from 14 years ago. But, you know, when you write an essay, especially when it has to do with family, like I'm not trying to get divorced over a byline. So I gave it to my mother-in-law, I gave it to my husband, and I just said, you know, let's read it, figure out, you just want to make everyone sort of like happy with the story and no hard feelings. So a funny thing happened when they both read it. They both had sort of different ideas about the story. And different mistakes I had made. And my mother-in-law thought one thing and my husband thought another. And it was sort of the exact point of my book. Oh, and Heather just said, I can't wait to read this book. Thank you, Heather. I can't wait for you to read it either. But it's sort of what I'm exploring in this story, that different family members have different concepts of these family stories, and they have different ideas of how the stories sort of went down and how everyone sort of comes out. So the book is about all those things, and also big diamonds.
How can you go wrong with that? I love the combination of like the giant beautiful ring, which is an enduring fascination to me, And also the sibling kind of mobile, and the way you mentioned that there's a gentle balance among the siblings. And then when the ring becomes available through circumstances I shall not divulge, how the mobile starts to sort of tip and spin, and everybody is in different constellations. And so
Yeah.
the book is about more than sparkle. The book is about those family dynamics, and that gives it its heart and its heft and its gravitas. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that your husband had an heirloom in his family that provided a sort of grist for the story mill, because I was going to ask you, do you have an heirloom in your own family that was akin to the Liz Taylor ring? Like, did you have something that you coveted and maybe it had lore attached to it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have something exactly like the ring I'm describing in the book. Like I said before, if I had an 11 carat Asher cut, or for that matter, 33.19 Asher cut, I'd be on a yacht like Liz Taylor, or in Florida like you. Somewhere I'd be somewhere fabulous.
Yeah.
So I don't really have something like that, but heirlooms are really important to me, and heirlooms play a really big role in my life. Most days when I'm not wearing the fake crop, I wear my grandma Dorothy's rings, and I have a few of them. And one of the rings that I talk about a lot that I'm almost always wearing has a star on it. And it's just the ring I associate with my childhood. It was just the ring I always, in my mind's eye, I see Grandma Dorothy wearing. And so, and I remember the day, I remember where I was standing in her apartment when I told her that. And I said, that ring is you. That reminds me of you. That reminds me of my childhood. And she turned to me and said, oh, we'll take it now, because why should you wait until I die to wear it? So that ring I've had for a really long time. It's really special to me. But then when she died, I got a few other pieces of her jewelry. And I always joke, I almost always have one of them on, but some days I'll have like 3 or 4 of them on. So if it's a family party that I think Grandma Dorothy would have really enjoyed, I'll wear a bunch of them. And then, the funniest is when I tell the cousins, I'm like, oh, well, I wanted Grandma Dorothy to be here for this. And they're sort of like, okay. But to me,
She's in the ring.
yeah, it's like I can feel her spirit with me. It's like I could feel her beside me, and I feel like I'm summoning her, and she sort of is there in a way. And then I feel like also for important meetings, she was a really smart, savvy person. And so sometimes I just sort of like need her spirit pushing me through. And so I'll sort of decide on a day which rings I'll wear of hers, how many. But those heirlooms are really, really important to me. And they're not necessarily the most valuable things in the world, but they're valuable to me.
They're emotionally valuable. Our producer, Ollie, put in the chat a couple of minutes ago, like, do you have a family heirloom that's connected to specific memories? And I would love for readers to share their stories in the comments so that we can all participate, because I feel as though it's such a universal thing. My mom had my grandma's ruby ring, my grandma Laverne. And my mom was always saying, when I die, you can have grandma's ring. And then she also told the same thing to my sister. And like, I don't think to my brother, but my sister and I were like lying in wait. We're like, not that we're waiting for you to die, Mom, but can we have the ring, please? And then it was this sort of like lore about like, where was Grandma Laverne's ruby ring? And then I did 1 year for Christmas get Grandma Laverne's ruby ring. And I was like, oh my God, I have it. And I told my sister I had it, and I might have gloated a little bit. And then I took it to a jeweler, and it was basically like red glass, which was totally fine, because it was not about the price of the gem at all. It was about the fact that it had assumed this mythic emotional quality. And in fact, most of my grandma Laverne lived in a farm town. So it wasn't like, we expected her to have the Asher diamond. But all of her jewelry was costume jewelry. And when I was like 3 or 4, I'd go sift through her drawers, and I would think that it was like a treasure chest in there. So I know Rachel Levy-Lesser, who is our baking show host, says, I so relate to this, wearing family heirlooms when you want to feel close to those family members. Can't wait to read. And Rachel is the author of a book called Life's Accessories about exactly this. So you have a lot of sisters here today, Brenda. So what was the genesis for this novel? Did you start with the ring? Did you start with the family?
Yeah, that's a great question. I started with the ring. After I wrote the Grace Kelly dress, I knew I was not done with writing about heirloom items. There was just something about it. I sort of couldn't get enough of heirlooms, and heirlooms are really important to me. In my house, I have lots of different heirlooms, not just jewelry, even pieces of furniture. I just love things that are handed down. I even have a bowl that belonged to my mother's grandmother. And, just those things are so special to me. So I knew I wasn't done with the heirlooms. And when I was thinking about, obviously I'm obsessed with wedding dresses. I wrote the Grace Kelly dress. And I said, what else am I obsessed with? So I thought about my grandma Dorothy's rings. And when you think jewelry, there's no other Hollywood starlet that comes to mind than Elizabeth Taylor. So I sort of had my Hollywood starlet, I had my ring, and then I came up with the title. And then from there, the love story just sort of came to me. I knew I wanted it to be inspired by Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton's epic love story. So that's sort of how I created the characters of Lizzie and Richie. And then I knew that I was going to have siblings. And, with the Grace Kelly dress, I had 3 different generations wearing the dress. And it was sort of passed down through these 3 generations. But, with every book, you want it to be different. And Ellen Hildebrand once said something like hilarious, which I will now butcher. And she wrote something on Instagram. It was to the effect of, I shall now write you the exact same book, but entirely different.
Right.
And there's something to that, right? Like I felt like I wasn't done with the Grace Kelly dress, but I had to do it entirely differently. So instead of the 3 generations, I said, okay, I'm going to have 3 siblings. And instead of it being passed down, they're going to fight over it. So once I knew that, the siblings sort of came to me pretty organically. And the book, I sort of knew exactly what I wanted it to be. Of course, it's harder to get it on the page. Even though what you want the book to be, that can be a challenge. So the family sort of came next, but the family came easily to me once I decided they were going to sort of like fight over the heirloom.
Yeah, what could go wrong? I was doing the promotion for this and I'm like, an 11-carat ring, mysterious parental love story, gambling, and 3 covetous siblings. What could go wrong with this picture? And again, I think it's something that everybody who has a family can relate to, that people can remember the same exact thing completely differently, and in fact often do, and have different ideas about memories and things. And you capture that so beautifully here. Do you want to give us like a little character sketch of each sibling so we know who we're dealing with? And I will let the cat out of the bag and say Lizzie and Richie are the mom and the dad in this story.
Yes.
And Richie is in love with Lizzie, and he also maybe has a poquito gambling problem, but he's the one who brings the ring into the family, and then the siblings come to have it in their possession. So I would love to hear your description of them, because they are a hoot. I mean, they are something else.
Yeah. And it's so funny. I'm often asked which sibling I'm the most like. And I think in this book, especially, I'm a little all of them. I think I'm like a little bit of each of them. But I think, you can sort of more obviously say, oh, she's Addie. So we'll start with Addie, who's the eldest. Addie is a stay-at-home mom. She has twin 16-year-old girls, and she's trying to raise them right. And she's really serious about it. Do not mess with Addie. She is very serious about raising feminist girls who have a good head on their shoulders, but maybe she's focusing on the wrong things all along. Then her brother Nathan, they were sort of raised as twins. They were, you would call them Irish twins, raised, they were just about a year apart from each other. Very, very close. And he is happily, maybe unhappily married to Diego. And he's sort of going through a midlife crisis on the cusp of turning 40. And he runs the family business with Addie's husband. Then 12 years later, Lizzie and Richie had an epic breakup and an epic get back together story. And then they had Courtney. So she's much younger than Addie and Nathan. And it's almost as if she grew up in a completely different family than those two. And those two certainly let her know that. So unfortunately, she's a little, Nathan's the sensitive one. So she definitely has a relationship with Nathan, but her and Addie, I don't know. They have some issues together. But Courtney, is kind of like a lost soul. She grew up in a completely different family than Addie and Nathan did. Addie and Nathan very much felt their father's gambling and their parents fighting. And Courtney didn't grow up in that family at all. Her parents were perfectly happy and her dad was doing great. So there's some resentments there that sort of fester over the years. And Courtney's out in LA trying to become an actress, and it's not going so well. So we'll leave it at that.
That is something else that's really interesting, how that the place in the pecking order, the place in the birth order determines what family you get born into. My siblings and I are each 5 years apart, and I'm the oldest, which, surprises nobody who knows me as a bossy person. But when we are all step laddered and each of us remembers the family constellation in a completely different way. So that dynamic is explored so beautifully here. Linda Coleman Chilton says, middle kids are the best and sensitive. Love this. Fine, Linda, take it outside with me. I'll have some words with you afterwards. It's the eldest, but that's fine. So one of the things that I would love to know also is, what was the research for this like? Because you write about such luscious stuff, like the wedding dress rabbit hole I would have gone into and never come out. Like especially the Grace Kelly dress. And by the way, if you guys don't follow Brenda on Instagram, you should, because she's always posting about Grace Kelly and now Liz Taylor and the beautiful jewelry and the beautiful dresses. And if you want like a Calgon take me away moment, like she will give it to you every single day. So check it out. But tell us about the research. And did you go into a ring rabbit hole and just
oh goodness, I went into so many rabbit holes. Oh my God. And I'm still not out of the wedding dress rabbit hole. So I don't know. I don't know how I find time to write because I'm so busy researching this stuff. So, you know, like I said, the parents' love story, Lizzie and Richie, is really based on Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor's epic romance. So I started with the book called Furious Love, which is a biography. It documents that time in their lives when they sort of came into their lives together and they were together. And it's fantastic. It is so scandalous and just so salacious. I just couldn't get enough. It was almost like I couldn't believe what I was reading, but obviously it was like a reported book, so everything is true. So once I read that, I sort of couldn't get enough. I next read How to Be a Movie Star, which is just about Elizabeth Taylor's life. And that was also so scandalous and epic and salacious, and I just couldn't get more. So I just kept going. And I found I literally could not stop researching Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. Then you go on Amazon and Apple TV, and there's all these movies about them. So there's made for TV movies, like the one with Lindsay Lohan, which I highly recommend, called Liz and Dick. But then there's all these biographies. They even made a documentary about the Christie's auction of Elizabeth Taylor's jewelry after she died. I mean, incredible stuff. So I just sort of couldn't stop reading about them and watching about them and then rewatching old movies, because there's Elizabeth Taylor movies, but then there's a whole genre of Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton movies. So, I mean, I literally couldn't stop, to the point that the biography that I list in the back of the book is actually not complete because I haven't stopped. So I've got this additional reading section, but I just can't stop reading about them and watching shows about them. And people are constantly sending me articles like Vanity Fair pieces, and I just can't stop reading. It's just an endless fascination. And now I'm on to my next Hollywood starlet, but I still keep obsessing about Elizabeth Taylor. So the research, talk about a rabbit hole. I've never come back out. And then in terms of diamonds, of course, I mean,
oh my God. Oh, this is a whole different topic, but I'm going like this because I'm like, who is the next starlet? Are you allowed to tell us?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I can definitely tell. So next we're doing Audrey Hepburn.
Shut the front door. Okay, what's the title for this? What are you doing Little Black Dress for Audrey Hepburn? What are you doing?
I'm not. It's called The Audrey Hepburn Estate. And yeah, so it's really, really inspired by Sabrina, which is a real favorite of mine.
Mm-hmm.
So of course there's going to be a little love triangle involved, but it's really the story of a woman who goes back to the house she grew up in years later, just as it's about to be torn down.
Oh my God, I cannot wait. Love Audrey Hepburn. Yes, we are looking forward to the Audrey Hepburn estate. We are indeed. I love all of these women. My family, the women in my family had a special kinship to Audrey Hepburn. My mom had a sort of a gammon look in the 60s. And my dad always used to say, oh, she looks just like Audrey Hepburn. My mom would be like, yes, I do, Bob. Thank you. And my sister also loved her. And we grew up watching Breakfast at Tiffany's. So I relate to this. But I also, like, every time I read a Brenda book, I go down the research rabbit hole on her behalf. And I was like, oh, Grace Kelly dress. Let's go look at bride dresses. And I have this weird gene that is very attuned. Like, I'm not always very girly, but like there's something about the wedding dress thing where I could look at them literally for hours and just scroll and scroll. And I love the sleeves and the waist. And then I started looking at diamond rings. And I remember texting you at one point and being like, tell me about an emerald cut ring. Is that tacky? Like, explain. So now I feel like you're the expert on all things. Diamond ring, Audrey Hepburn. Like, how do you choose from this really lush flotilla of details, which ones to put in the book. I mean, you have obviously way more than you could ever use, even if you wrote about nothing but these women for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it is kind of tricky. And, I'm sort of like, I do research before I start, but then I'm researching as I'm writing as sort of inspiration. It is hard to pick and choose. And then there are certain things that you don't get to put in. With the Liz Taylor ring, I really feel like I was able to put in, even if it's just like the gentlest nod, all of the things I was obsessed with. I feel like I put a lot of them into the book. But now with Audrey, I'm finding it. I'm having a little more trouble getting the things I want in there. Um, but as when you're writing a book, you're writing it for a year or two. Then hopefully then you're editing it for a year or two, and then hopefully you're promoting it for a year or two. So you have to really be obsessed about what you're writing about. And so I'm really careful to sort of write about these things that I want to be talking about for years on end, and things that I sort of can't get enough of. So the research I'm sort of just having so much fun with, and that's why I'm going down all the rabbit holes. So I think that's how I'm picking and choosing. But it is hard to sort of pull yourself back and say, okay, let's focus on the plot here, or let's focus on this character, but because you're always trying to like infuse more and like, oh, I have this delicious detail, where can that come out?
I feel it as though there should be a repository for the details that don't make it, but that are really super lovely. I think that actually that's what Instagram is for, right? And Facebook and Twitter, like I share a lot when I'm researching for books without giving away the plot of the book, but then at least readers can be immersed in the world that I'm surrounding myself in. And if it is something luscious, like the wedding dresses or the rings or the Audrey Hepburn, everything, all things Audrey, then we can go and look. And again, definitely follow Brenda on Insta. I have a question about Instagram, by the way. So, this is like totally off the beaten track, but this is the kind of thing I love to ask. Is like, you do the best videos. She does really good reels and IGTV. So like, how much time do you devote to this versus how much time do you devote to writing versus promoting, all that stuff? And why do you look so cute in your videos? I mean, you are cute, but I'm like, what are you doing over there? Like, why you look all luminous?
Okay, well, the luminous is because I get all of my makeup from my makeup artist, Anne DeMarco Cosmetics. That's really the short answer. Give Anne the credit for any luminosity that's taking place. She's sensational. You can find her on Instagram. She'll do it over FaceTime. She'll match you to colors. So yeah, she's amazing. In fact, I just texted her. I was like, can you bring this over? And she's like, I'm going out. And I was like, but I need to look luminous.
Well, Brenda does, in all fairness, have natural luminosity, but like there's this a special Instagram glow. Now we know it's Anne DeMarco is her name.
Anne DeMarco Cosmetics. Yeah. And I think her Instagram handle, I think, is just Anne DeMarco Cosmetics. But if you go on my page, I talk about her nonstop because she's always doing my makeup. With the videos, I think it's a lot like writing. I'm spending an obscene amount of time making them, and then I'm editing. So if I'm spending hours, you're seeing like 5 seconds that I've deemed worthy of a reel. But I'm spending way too much time on it. So, but I find I'm not like a balanced person. I'm balanced. Like if you look at the whole year, I'm balanced, but like one day I'll just do reels. So for example, on Monday, I had Newsday come to my house to do a photo shoot for this interview they did. Yeah. So obviously Anne DeMarco had to come to my house and like shellac my face. And like there was a whole thing happening. So after that, in the afternoon, I took like an hour to do a few reels. Some came out good, some didn't, but I had makeup on. A lot of days, unlike Elizabeth Taylor, I'm just going to the supermarket. Life isn't that exciting. So I'm sort of like batching everything together. So I'll spend a ridiculous amount of time making videos and reels. Then I edit from there, and I only take like a tiny little snippet. So I think that's the answer. I mean, I'm definitely spending too much time on reels. that we know. I don't know
if I agree with that. I do think it's like writing a book, because when we put any sort of social media content online, people think, oh, you just kind of like sneeze and that comes out, but it's actually about an hour for each post, right? And for reels, it's the same thing. And that is like writing a book as well. Like people see the finished product, but there are like 800 pages of writing that doesn't make the cut. And then there's all the research on the cutting room floor. So a lot goes into what you see. It's just the tip of the iceberg. And now I know when I have makeup on, I should be doing reels instead of doing what I usually do, which is walk the dog. And then I'm like, look how fancy I am walking the dog, and nobody cares, especially the dog. So this is
never waste makeup. Never waste your makeup.
Dude, guys, if you take nothing else from this interview, which you will, because you're all going to buy at least 5 copies of Liz Taylor Ring because it's going to make you so, so, so happy. But like also life advice, don't waste makeup. Super, super important, I think. So I want to know also, because you write about people who are so famous and so in the public eye, I know they're in public domain. So it's not like you can be sued. Like these are public figures. But I actually have 2 questions about this. The one is, do you form a personal connection with each icon? And then what is the greatest challenge of writing about each iconic woman?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first question is really easy. So I do form a personal connection to each icon. I mean, each star that I'm writing about, I've sort of loved since I was a little girl. So there was sort of that institutional knowledge, and I'd seen the movies as a little girl. And part of what's funny is watching it now as an adult. On the rewatch, I'm having a different experience with some of the films, but I feel so personally connected to these women, and love them so much, and I feel so defensive of them. And I think especially with Grace Kelly and Elizabeth Taylor, one of the things that gets lost because the women were so incredibly beautiful is how smart they were. And I feel like people forget that or don't think that's important. All they focus on is their beauty. And these women were so incredibly smart, so clever, so funny. And it comes out, in their quotes and in interviews, and you see sort of how smart and quick they are. Like my favorite Liz Taylor Krupp Diamond story is when shortly after getting the Krupp Diamond, Elizabeth Taylor saw Princess Margaret. And Princess Margaret, and you can Google this, and Elizabeth Taylor tells the story so much funnier than I'm going to tell it now because she does the accent, which I will spare you, my terrible British accent.
Oh, no.
No, Princess Margaret looks at her and says, "Oh, is that the Krupp Diamond?" And Elizabeth Taylor sort of like, "Yes, it is." And she says, "Oh, how vulgar." And so Elizabeth Taylor doesn't miss a beat. She said, "Oh, would you like to try it on?" So now what woman can resist a 33.19 carat diamond? So of course she tries it on. And as she has it on her finger and she's preening and looking at herself, Elizabeth Taylor just casually says, "Not so vulgar now, is it?" And, so these women were just so smart and so ahead of their time. And so you sort of can't help but fall in love with them. And then in terms of infusing their essence into the books, it's not biographical fiction. So they don't appear in the book at all, but their essence is a part of the book, and the book is a reflection of them. And I think the love shines through. These books are really a love letter to these women. And with the Grace Kelly dress, I worked with Grace Influential, which is her family's initiative to just sort of like get the image of Princess Grace out there more. We did all these fun things together. And as of right now, the House of Taylor, which covers Elizabeth Taylor's branding and all of her many businesses, they're reading it right now. I think Elizabeth Taylor's grandson is reading it like as we speak.
Oh, wow.
And I remember I said to the head of House of Taylor, I said, "Just tell him I'm sorry I called her so sexy. I know it's his grandmother, but this woman is so gorgeous." I'm like, "Please forgive me." And she was like, "I think he's heard that before." So they're all reading it now. Yeah. So I'm excited. I'm hoping to do a collaboration with the House of Taylor on this too. So, I think that their grandchildren and certainly the people, their brand ambassadors, understand that this is just a giant love letter to them.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Do you think that you would ever write about somebody and then find out you didn't really like that woman, and then what would happen?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, I guess that could happen, and that would be crazy. I don't know what would happen. I think these women are so much more than just their public persona. So I think that I would be able to find like the one thing I could sort of hang my hat on, or just do sort of like an unlikable protagonist thing. I think I'd be able to make it work. But what I found is, these women, just to get where they were in the time that they sort of went so far, they're really special people. So I'm not sure that that would happen, but maybe it would. Um, yeah, they always say, like, don't meet your idols, right? Because, like, so, I mean, maybe, but so far that has not happened. So far, the research has made me love these women even more. And right now, I'm really involved with Audrey Hepburn research, and she's just so impossibly dreamy, and her sons are so dreamy, and they speak of her with so much love. And she was also just like a fascinating person. You know, both Elizabeth Taylor and Audrey Hepburn later in life used their celebrity for charity work.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's so incredible. That's so wonderful to me that that's how they chose to sort of spend their time and their money and their energy. Really incredible women.
Do you have like a list of women? I'm thinking about like Marilyn Monroe, and I think about Brigitte Bardot, who also was an animal rights activist. That's what sort of made me think of her. But do you have a list of women stretching sort of into infinity whom you could write about?
I sure do. I have a list of a million different actresses that I'd really love to sort of figure out a little more. And then I have a list of heirloom items that I'd love to sort of write about and think about. I even have one man on my list.
Who is it? We should all guess. I should actually. I will ask the audience to guess.
I love
Audience,
it.
like, please.
Yes.
Sophia Loren, not a man, but okay, Sylvia, we will take that. But
Love
audience,
her.
if you have guesses about, I know I love her also. If you have guesses about which man is on Brenda's list, we would love to see. So throw your answers up. And also, if you have questions, this is the time to ask because we have about, I don't know, 5 minutes left. So this is your chance to ask Brenda anything you ever wanted to know about Brenda being Brenda and her books. So I think it is like you have like a sort of, now I'm picturing like a hall of mirrors of famous and beautiful women to write about and heirlooms. But I also think of you as like the family saga queen. I grew up reading Belva Plain, who is like my favorite family saga writer of all time. She wrote like these amazing like family sagas that all had a moral Jewish center and all the bad people ended up being punished. And, you know, but I loved them and they were very luscious and people were like sleeping with their wives' sisters and all of these fantastic things. So I kind of feel like you're the inheritor of the Belva standard. And do you consider yourself more of a family saga writer or a icon explorator?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm both. I've done quite a few family dramas, and you know, I feel like there's always something to explore when it comes to family. Audrey is a little more about the love triangle and friends who become family. I was trying to, again, write the same book but different. And so my theme with that is like slightly different. But yeah, I think I do all of those things, but really it just goes back to sort of like what I'm obsessed with. And also what I'm obsessed with at that moment, right? And that sort of changes. I don't necessarily write about what's in the zeitgeist, but I do write about sort of like what's happening in my own experience and what's going on in my life. So, yeah. Oh, I remember Caroline once asked me that, what's obsessing you now? She asked me that in an interview, I think maybe for Grace. Yeah, you know, I do tend to write about the things I'm obsessed with, and I'm obsessed with quite a lot. That's the thing. And I feel like I'm always surprising people with what I'm obsessed with because, you know, I write about these Hollywood starlets and I write about family drama, but I'm also obsessed with things that don't necessarily fit into that box. So maybe I'll surprise you guys. Sylvia
Cool.
said Sean Connery. It's not Sean Connery. So guys, keep guessing who my one man is.
Cary Grant.
Oh, you know, okay, I have to say it's not Cary Grant, but I'm completely obsessed with Cary Grant. I love him so much.
How could you not be obsessed with Cary Grant?
Yeah, there's this quote that he said that I actually posted on my Instagram a month or two ago, and it's something to the effect of everyone wants to be Cary Grant, even I want to be
Cary
Cary
Grant. Yes, I remember that. That's so great. Is it George Clooney? I'm just gonna like probably say it's George. Does it have to be somebody who is alive, or could it be, or no? It can be
Long gone.
okay. All right, dead guy. Come on, guys, give us like your dead.
Unless you're dead.
List of the glamorous dead. It's like
I love it. Beautiful dead people.
Beautiful dead men. There's a title for a book.
That's actually
Charlie Chaplin.
No, but that's good. And Rock Hudson's a really good guess. Humphrey Bogart. You guys are getting closer. You're getting there.
Bogart. Oh my God. Literally wiping drool from my face. Oh, Clark Gable. He is my favorite.
That's another good one, but no, I am obsessed with him as well. I mean, I'm obsessed with like most of these guesses. Most of the people, like you're in my wheelhouse, you get it. But I will give you a little hint. Should I give a little hint?
Yes, please.
Fast cars, but not James Dean. Although I am obsessed with James Dean also.
Now I'm like Tracy Chapman. I will spare you. I will spare you my rendition. Okay, so oh my
Should I
God.
tell everyone?
At the very end, of the interview, I will ask for it. Okay, yeah, Paul Newman. Paul
That's a
Newman.
really good guess also, and I'm obsessed with him as well. When I rewatched Cat on a Hot Tin Roof for my Elizabeth Taylor research, yeah, like I felt like you had to watch it. You know how you watch a solar eclipse, like a paper with, that's how I had to watch it. That's how incredibly gorgeous he is. Like I almost couldn't look at the screen. So it's like, she's so stunning. It's like, where do I look? My eyes.
It's like blinding. It's like when I go to Paris, I think this is just too pretty. Like everything here is too beautiful. And I can't, I can't even do that. Okay, so we're not looking at comments anymore. Yeah.
But also, he's another one that devoted his life to charity when
Yeah.
he was older, which is incredible.
Yeah.
So maybe Paul Newman, because I love him so much, but he's not the one that was on my list. And James Dean's not the one, although I love James Dean so much. I was completely obsessed with him when I was a kid. And that later grew into 90210 being obsessed with Dylan McKay. And I remember when Luke Perry died, I knew he died because my phone started blowing up and he just had that accident. And it was like in a movie, I was like, and I knew he was dead.
Yeah.
And I remember I was driving and I was like, oh. And so, yeah, I remember I got to where I was going and I looked at my phone. I just like knew. But yeah, James Dean, all James Dean doppelgangers, love them all.
Yes, I love Elvis also. That was my, but I don't think he's in the same, for some reason, I don't feel like he's in the same lane as everybody we've been talking about. Be like Robert Redford, although he's still alive. So it can't be Bobby. All right, keep them coming, you guys. And meanwhile, if we ask Brenda about her obsessions, one of our readers wanted to know where she can buy a signed copy of Liz Taylor Ring, or as we suggest, 17 copies of the Liz Taylor Ring for all of your friends who are obsessed with glamour and rings and family.
Exactly. Yeah, so there are signed copies everywhere out in the wild. And I did a little book plates project like I did with the Grace Kelly dress. And I sent different independent bookstores that I love signed copies, signed little book plates. So there is a place on my website and actually on my Instagram also where you can get a list of every independent bookstore that has these signed book plates, and they'll mail them to you. And I was also at Litchfield Books in South Carolina last week. So they have physical copies that were signed. So however you want your signature, you can get it. So there's a list on my website. When you click on the Liz Taylor page, there's a link to get a signed book plate, and same for Grace Kelly. So, but Litchfield Books, I was just there last week. So
and what was that like? We were chatting a little bit in the green room about doing sort of author tours that are half virtual and half in person. And can you tell your audience what this has been like for you to publish your second book in a pandemic? How does that compare to the first book in the pandemic?
Yeah, it's been so crazy. So the Grace Kelly dress came out March 3rd. So I had about 2 weeks of book tour as the world was sort of like coming to an end.
Yeah.
But I didn't know because I was in, Grace Kelly bliss. And I remember at my last event, a lot of my friends didn't show up. It was an event on Long Island and people weren't coming. And it was on the Friday the 13th, and people were saying, they were like, oh, I don't think the kids are going to have school on Monday. The world is shutting down. And I remember my reaction was to take as many leftover baked goods home as possible. I just remember I was like, get me a bag. And I put like all these chocolate chip muffins in the bag. And my husband was like, that's what you took. That was my take.
The muffins last forever. You have that and diamond rings. Like, what more do you need when the world is closing?
Yeah, unfortunately, I stress ate all of them within like 2 days between my sons and I. They did not last long, but yeah, I took a lot of them. So, after those 2 weeks, we sort of segued into virtual. And, like I mentioned at the beginning, A Mighty Blaze was so amazing. I had like all these amazing people sort of come to my rescue. With this book, I think we thought that the world was going to open back up. So we were trying to make plans. But then that didn't happen. So things started canceling. So I ended up with a mostly virtual tour with that one event at Litchfield Books. So, I was like nervous to go because it was the first time I'd flown in 2 years, but I was excited. I was like excited to sort of like do something for myself, for the book, and just be in the world again. And I didn't know how I was going to react. So actually on the way there, I like took a Xanax. I was sort of like, will I freak out? But no, everything was lovely and wonderful. And it was great. And I had a wonderful time. I forgot how much I love meeting readers and just how like these are our people. It's like when when you're a reader and a writer and you love all these things, just being with these people, it just feeds your soul. So it was a really amazing experience. And I really came home sort of like a new person, just like happy and ready to go. I'm hoping that one of my events in Connecticut will reschedule for April. So I'm like hoping to have one more live event, but such is life. Hopefully by the time Audrey comes out in April 2023, we'll be out of this.
Yes, mark your calendars, everybody, or we will have had the pandemic become an endemic and we'll be used to living with it like the flu, right? I agree. I thought personally the pandemic would be over by June 2020. Like I had that on my calendar. I was ready. And I thought,
Same.
we're going to do the Blaze and we're going to, draw everybody over for pub day and do a little mitzvah and whatever. And here we still are. And I feel as though there's no
Incredible.
substitute for meeting readers in person. And I'm so grateful to see so many people watching and in our feed who are from places that are really far away, who I would not have been able to meet
Mm.
for the virtual events. So I feel as though the virtual has been an amazing addition to the literary world. But that is me being a Pollyanna, I imagine. So Heather, who says virtual is good too, thank you. Like agreed. Wants to know if you're coming to Rhode Island, and so where can readers go on your site to find out where your events are and how often do they get updated? Because I always forget to update my events, and people are like, "Are you coming to Pawtucket?" And I'm like, "What? Oh, that was 2019. Sorry."
I try to be really good about updating my website because I find otherwise I get overwhelmed and I have too many things to do. So I try to update it. As of today, it's completely updated. So there's a tab for events. And so you can very easily find my events there. Like I said, they're almost all virtual right now, but you can sign up for them online, which is great. Some are ticketed, some are not. And then I'm hoping to put some in-person ones on there, and that'll be great too. And then, yeah, so that's all good. Hi, Renee.
You have so many fans here, which I love. And I love the in-person events too. And I also sort of missed being on Blaze Cam when I wasn't, doing here every Friday. I was on tour in October, November, and I really missed doing the interviews and seeing my friends. So I'm really glad to be doing this with you. So we have about a minute left because I've kept you for almost an hour. Which I could talk to you forever and ever. Ooh, I have a question. I have two questions. So the first one, which I personally need to know, is who is your boyfriend crush at the moment, your book boyfriend crush?
Ooh. Oh, wow. Oh my God. Book boyfriend crush. I feel like I have so many. I just finished The Violin Conspiracy by Brendan Slocum, and Ray was very yummy. And I definitely fell in love with Ray. And he's a little too young for me, but since it's like a fake book boyfriend, I think it's okay that I can say Ray, even though it might be illegal. I don't know.
Possibly. We won't tell anybody. Nobody heard that. Nobody heard a thing. And by the way, you guys, Hank Philippi Ryan just interviewed Brendan on Tuesday. So in case you missed it, you can go check it out. And you can check it out, Brenda, secretly. You can go check out your boyfriend, the creator
Well,
of your boyfriend, the creator of your boyfriend.
yeah, no, I have to say we sometimes DM on Instagram, so I'm going to tell him that I called Ray my book boyfriend, and then I guess we'll stop DMing because I'll be like, "You're creepy."
Honestly, so Brenda had a crush on one of my male characters, Peter.
Because
And she
I
had
was
to
in love
fight.
with him.
Well, I'm also kind of in love with it. Like Andrea Peskin Katz, who is
You
also
were fighting over it.
yeah, you and Andrea were just it was like book bachelorette, and I still would love to
That
do
was
a
bad.
series about that. It was awesome. So every time I think about you, I'm like, I wonder who her boyfriend is now, and that's the thing. Like, I want to know who everybody's boyfriend is, and also to wish happy birthday to Mindy Ehrlich, who's one of our most amazing book boosters ever, book and author boosters. We love you, Mindy. Thank you, thank you.
Awesome.
And then in addition to knowing who the guy is on your book idol write about list, I want to know, while we have them all here, what do you want to say to your readers?
Oh goodness, I think just a giant thank you. I'm just so grateful that anyone buys my books, and I just want to hug them all and thank them. I think when you first start writing, you sort of start writing for yourself, and you don't even think that it'll be out in the world. And then, your first book comes out and you sort of put it out in the world and you're still sort of adjusting to that. But now this is my seventh book. So, I very much write to be published, to sort of get it out there. And I'm just so appreciative anytime anyone reads any of my stuff. I just want to give them all a big giant hug. So I think what I would say to my readers is just thank you. I love you. I'm giving virtual hugs. And for the last second, I will tell you all the only guy on my list of Hollywood starlets, but he's a Hollywood star. And I wonder, I don't know, Jenna, I hope you approve. I hope you like him. Steve McQueen.
Yes, somebody said that in the chat. Who was it? We
Isn't
should send her a book. Oh my God, I'm
We
totally
should.
looking for that now. Whoever said
Yes.
Steve McQueen, please raise your hand because I did see Steve in the chat.
Whoever said Steve McQueen gets a prize. Oh,
Yes,
Sylvia.
Sylvia. Okay,
Yes.
Sylvia, we will DM you. Like, you have to DM the Blaze, and we will figure out what the prize is going to be. Maybe like Steve McQueen life-size cardboard cutout, which I know Brenda probably has in her office.
I used to have a James Dean life-size cutout, interestingly enough.
I used to have an Elvis one.
Yeah, I should look into getting a Steve McQueen one. No, we should send Sylvia a copy of the Liz Taylor ring.
Of course we should. She guessed correctly. That would be amazing. It would be signed, obvious. That would be. Thank you. You guys heard it here first. You heard this privileged information. Do not share it with anybody because, like, we're now the secret Steve McQueen club. We can't wait. And that's not next though. Next is Audrey, and then is it Steve? Like, how long do we have to wait for Steve?
Oh, I mean, Steve's just on the list. I don't know. I don't know if Steve will even happen. I don't, a big debate we were having, it's like, will women have that sort of emotional connection to a book about a male star? I mean, that was sort of like the trick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we didn't know. And then in terms of structuring the book and the inspiration, is it too masculine? Is it too male? So that's a ways down the line. But now you all know I love Steve McQueen.
Yes, we do. So, ladies, we would like to know. You can just answer yay or nay in the chat. Would you feel like so disconnected from reading about Steve McQueen? Do women like to read about men? Yes. I say bring it, bring it, bring it on. Brenda, thank you so much for being with us today to talk about your seventh book about the 11-carat ring, Liz Taylor ring. You guys should buy 11 copies, one for each carat in the ring. You will love it. You will gift for gifts. Mother's Day is coming up in like 2 months. Your moms will love it. Everybody will love it. So thank you. And please, like, get that Audrey book out fast. We cannot wait. We're already drooling for it.
Thank you so much, Jenna.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining the Blaze today. We will see you next Tuesday for Pub Day. Bye.